I really like working with Adam. It's he has a very clear vision of what he wants.
It's really irrelevant to me. I don't know who decides that. Gets to put that stuff out there. It kind of pisses me off a little bit because we have discussions on everything, and that's our job. We have to work through so much stuff, and that's what we got to do. And that's all we've done since we've been here. Since we've started, we just constantly were in communication. Whether he's coming out of my office or I'm going to his office, that's all we're trying to do is just trying to make sure that we're on the same page all the time.
Well, they were on the same page, not for very long. And I think the fact that there was that constant communication, Chris, that led to and look, I don't know that it was a coup. I don't know that it was a power play deliberately. It's just possible the circumstance of taking Mike Maccagnan and Adam Gase and mashing them together for 4 months resulted in natural inherent dysfunction that caused Christopher Johnson, the CEO of the team, to look at it and say, this can't continue. These are two dramatically different personalities. And we're going to be better off with someone who is better suited to dealing with Adam Gase, because Gase is clearly the coach, and Gase is the guy who is decisive and motivated and driven. And reportedly, the knock on Maccagnan is he was a little too wishy-washy, a little too indecisive. And I just think that is a bad combination, and Christopher Johnson eventually agreed.
Yeah, well, I don't look at it as a coup d'etat or anything like that. I mean, at least from my standpoint, I look at it more like, okay, here's a guy, Adam Gase, that got hired. I got to imagine that Mike Maccagnan was already on the radar of Christopher Johnson and maybe some other people higher up in the organization as far as not being totally happy or satisfied with the job they had done to this point. I mean, they had to be to a degree, or they're crazy as well. I mean, we can't sit here and go, oh, Maccagnan's been awesome and this has been amazing so far. There's been some good moments, but as the Jet fans up here in the New York area know, the good moments have been, okay, traded up and was fortunate that Sam Darnold fell to them, right? That was a great moment. Leonard Williams fell exactly to them. Jamal Adams, we just saw this year, Quincy Williams fell to them. So those are positive moments, but I don't think, myself or any of the Jets fans really look at that and go, oh, what great moves by Mike Maccagnan, other than maybe Sam Darnold. So, there's been issues with team building, not being able to get a pass rusher, really never being able to draft a receiver with any talent, whether it's Devin Smith out of Ohio State who didn't work out. I mean, their best receiver they've signed or got is Robbie Anderson, who was an undrafted free agency. But then you go into the Christian Hackenberg moments. Christian Hackenberg in the second round, I mean, that is one of the worst picks in modern history. I mean, it really is. I don't know if he should have been drafted, let alone if he was, it should have been the 6th or 7th round. Trading to get Bryce Petty. I mean, I can go on and on down the list of very suspect moves there. So where I can understand where this move or why this move was made, and maybe Adam Gase just gave the push over the edge when things didn't go well to bring up some more issues that he didn't like maybe with ownership, and that's maybe what got it all done at the end of the day.
I just don't like the idea that if you had misgivings about Mike Maccagnan, why not fire him when you fire Todd Bowles, the head coach, and then you start from scratch then? Because now there is going to be a potential element of a forced marriage where Adam Gase is there as the head coach. You bring in a GM. The typical model is if the GM is going to have final say over the football operation, the GM eventually wants to hire his own coach. And you're going to have to find a guy that the GM is comfortable with and a guy that the coach is comfortable with. So it's basically going to be an Adam Gase hire. That's the easiest way to fill this job. Gase now is the interim GM. And even if he doesn't have final say moving forward, and I think there's a chance he will have final say, or if not in writing as a practical matter, he's going to be calling the shots. I think this is going to be a Gase guy. First name that came up, Joe Douglas, the Eagles director of player personnel, a Gase guy. It's going to be a Gase guy. And when Christopher Johnson, the owner of the team, says he's looking for a great strategic thinker, a great communicator, great collaborator, great leader, great manager, whatever, I think it's going to be Gase, regardless of whether or not someone else holds the title of GM. And I assume someone will hold that title of GM. There won't be a director of player personnel or anything like that. Whoever the GM is, I think the end result here is Gase runs the football operation.
Well, I think he'll have a big say in it. I don't know if I definitely agree with you that he'll just have flat out final say over it. Either way, hey, there's nothing wrong with them getting a guy in there that Adam Gase likes or has a relationship with, or, sees eye to eye on football values and how to build a team. So if Joe Douglas is a guy, from Philadelphia who's been around and I've heard a lot of good things about from a lot of different people around the NFL, NFL, it makes sense to want to hire a GM that the head coach respects and has a very good working football relationship to go with anyways. Hey, the other thing here too is I've had a lot of my Jet friends and stuff go, oh, well, I mean, they're going to give Gase, power of the roster right now. Did they see what happened down in Miami? Okay, I'm sure Adam Gase made a few moves in Miami he didn't love, but at the end of the day, man, Miami's got a lot of things going on down there. I know from a lot of people, and I've heard it from all around, that there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen down there in Miami. There's a lot of people sticking their hand into football decisions that shouldn't be doing it, and I think that there was things that were kind of a mess down there, and that didn't exactly help Adam Gase out either. But I think Adam,
there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen in Miami, and the master chef doesn't live there. I mean, that is a stew of dysfunction, and it actually got better when Gase became the coach. It was untenable before Gase became the head coach. And Gase went to the playoffs his first year.
That's right.
And he made some tough moves with some guys that got pushed out of town because he's trying to build a team.
Sure.
What's the sign on the wall? At New England, we're not just collecting players, we're building a football team.
Exactly right. Yeah.
That's what he tried to do in Miami.
He did, and people gave him flack for Ndamukong Suh. And look, here we are now, 2 years out, and Ndamukong Suh's still out on a team, and he's looking for a new one because the team didn't want him after Miami. So,
Yeah, okay, but Jarvis Landry's kind of worked out for the Browns, and Mike Pouncey kind of worked out for the Chargers. So you're being selective there in which guy you're
Jarvis Landry, okay, he worked out. The Browns way overpaid him. That's the other thing, too, you got to remember there. That's what Adam Gase didn't want to do at the end of the day. He didn't want to pay Jarvis Landry $15 million a year for a guy who works in the slot and catches a lot of short passes and screens. So I understand that. So that's where he drew the line there. I think it was actually a good football decision. They got some other receivers in there last year that were extremely talented. Some of them got hurt like Albert Wilson, but they showed that they were able to make some things happen in that Dolphins offense too. So either way, listen, I go back to being one of the root problems of GMs. I had always heard that Mike Maccagnan was about to be fired by the Houston Texans. But you know what happened, and this is the new thing in the NFL, where the owners are going to call people they know. Well, the owner of the Jets, they called Charlie Casserly, who's, been in the NFL media and out of the NFL game for a little bit now, but they call him, Charlie Casserly's, hey, help us find a new GM. Well, Charlie Casserly's friend is Mike Maccagnan. So, of course, Mike Maccagnan now gets in the running for running the organization, and now he is the GM for the New York Jets. So I know there was people, and I'm sure Christopher Johnson and the rest of the ownership probably heard as time went on that Mike Maccagnan didn't necessarily have the greatest reputation before he got there anyways. So I'm sure that made them scratch their heads, let alone with some of the draft picks and moves they made in free agency, like overpaying LeVeon Bell this year, overpaying Tremaine Johnson last year, not being able to make the Anthony Barr move happen, the Ryan Fitzpatrick, giving him too much money into year two after you knew it was a one-year magical run. Move on. You knew it wasn't going to work. We know what Ryan Fitzpatrick is at this point. Be like John Elway. Oh, we went to the playoffs with Tim Tebow. That was nice, but I don't think we're going to go any farther. We got to make a bold move and go get a Peyton Manning. So I think there's a lot of things there that the Jets fans have this pent-up frustration, and I understand why the move was made.
I agree with most of what you said, though. I don't blame Mike Maccagnan for Anthony Barr. I blame the agent for Anthony Barr.
I get you there.
The agent should have realized there was misgivings on the part of Anthony Barr, because there clearly were. And that's when the agent has to say, dude, you understand that telling me yes is the same thing as putting your name on the contract. Because if you go back on this, we all look bad, and you have to be all in before I tell them you're taking the offer. But regardless of all of that, I agree. And it continues to point to me to a situation where they're going to find a GM that Gase wants. And for the same reasons that, a Charlie Casserly recommends a Mike Maccagnan, Adam Gase is going to recommend a friend, a former colleague, someone that he knows he'll be able to work with. And that person is going to be grateful to Gase. He's going to be indebted to Gase. And even if the new GM has, at the bottom of his contract, you have final say over the draft and the 53-man roster, Gase is going to be the guy.
He'll have a lot to say.
As a practical matter, tells the GM how it's going to be. And that's just we know Gase, that's the force of his personality.
Right.
And you can't have a guy exactly like Gase in that job, otherwise it'll explode. They'll find somebody that Gase will believe he can work with, and that Gase will believe will do the things that Gase wants. And you mentioned LeVeon Bell.
Yeah.
LeVeon Bell was overpaid by the Jets. They could have gotten him for less than what they paid him.
Right.
And I believe that Adam Gase was banging that drum and they didn't listen to him. And that ends up becoming one of the reasons why Mike Maccagnan isn't there, because they did overpay a guy who hasn't shown up for the offseason program. That may have been the final straw as far as Christopher Johnson was concerned. We gave all this money to Le'Veon Bell. He's not here for the offseason program. Maybe Gase was right. We should have given him less.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly could have been, you know, the final nail in the coffin. Yes, there was no market for Le'Veon Bell, as I understand it. And, you know, I've talked to a lot of people about this subject. I mean, literally, Le'Veon Bell's agent was calling teams going, hey, you can have Le'Veon Bell for this much per year. And it was, of course, significantly less than what the Jets gave him per year, which is, what, $12 million. You know, that from everything I know, they created a market at the last second when they realized there was no market. They called around teams. You can have him for $8-9 million a year. And teams were like, whoa, well, we didn't expect that. Hold on, we'll call you back. And maybe we can find some way to finagle our situation and get Le'Veon Bell on the roster. So that's really what happened. Yeah, the Jets overpaid, certainly. You know, but here's another thing that I've heard a lot from up here. You know, why would they let Maccagnan spend all this money in free agency? Okay, I get that. But I would bet you there was a lot of conversations with Adam Gase about these players. They signed in free agency for the most part. And I would think for the most part, Adam Gase gave his stamp of approval on a lot of these guys to go with it, to why they were signed too. So it wasn't like it was just Mike Maccagnan building a team without anybody talking to him or anything like that.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.